The massive screen in the Galactic Council chamber flickered with static before revealing a sight that made even the most seasoned council members gasp. The face on the screen belonged to High Commander Wilson of the Stellar Alliance, but his usual pristine appearance was replaced by cuts and burns. Smoke filled the background of his transmission. "This is an urgent appeal to the Galactic Council," Wilson's voice cracked as he spoke. "The swarm has broken through our last major defense line. We've lost contact with 12 colony worlds in the past week alone." The council chamber erupted in worried whispers. The Stellar Alliance was known for having some of the most advanced defensive systems in the galaxy. If they were falling, something had gone terribly wrong. Head Counselor Smith leaned forward in his chair. "What of your bioshield technology? Your quantum arrays?" "Useless," Wilson coughed, waving away smoke from his face. "The swarm, they've evolved. They're adapting faster than our computers can generate new defense patterns. Our most advanced AI systems can't keep up with their tactical changes." The transmission shook as an explosion rocked Wilson's command center. A junior officer rushed into view, whispering something in his ear. Wilson's face paled. "We've just lost the Centauri Gateway. They'll be at our core worlds within days." He looked directly at the council, his eyes reflecting desperation. "We need help. We need—" He hesitated, looking as if the next words pained him physically. "We need the humans." The chamber fell silent. In the 100 years since humanity had joined the galactic community, they had been seen as oddities. Their technology was considered primitive by most standards. They still used physical weapons alongside energy ones. Their ships were bulky, built more like ocean vessels than the sleek craft preferred by other races. They relied more on their crews than on AI systems. The humans. Council member Roberts scoffed. "Their most advanced ships are centuries behind the Alliance fleet. What could they possibly offer against an enemy that's defeating your quantum technology?" Wilson's reply was cut short by another explosion. When the video stabilized, they could see blood running down the side of his face. "We don't need their technology," he said firmly. "We need their—" He paused, searching for the right word. "Their unpredictability. Their strange ways of thinking. The swarm adapts to patterns, to logic. Humans don't always follow logic." Head Counselor Smith stroked his chin thoughtfully. The humans had earned a reputation for solving problems in unexpected ways. Their military history was filled with examples of inferior forces defeating superior ones through what they called thinking outside the box. "Very well," Smith nodded. "I will send an emergency request to Earth's United Federation. But I must warn you, their response may not be what you expect." Wilson managed a weak smile. "At this point, Head Counselor, anything is better than complete annihilation." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the chamber in tense silence. Within hours, the request was sent to Earth. The response came faster than anyone expected. Admiral James Miller, Earth's military representative to the Council, appeared on the screen. His weathered face was calm, almost serene. "We've reviewed the situation," Miller said. "The United Federation has decided to send aid to the Stellar Alliance. We're dispatching the 7th Fleet immediately." The council members who knew of Earth's military structure began to protest. The 7th Fleet was known as their training fleet. Older vessels crewed largely by instructors and cadets. It was considered the weakest of Earth's naval forces. But before anyone could object, Miller continued with a slight smile. "Trust me when I say this. The 7th Fleet is exactly what the Alliance needs right now. Sometimes the best weapon isn't the newest or the most advanced. Sometimes it's the one that's been tested by time and experience." The transmission ended, leaving the council members to wonder if they had just witnessed humanity's greatest folly or its most brilliant strategy. The United Earth Federation's Emergency Council chamber was filled with heated debate. Military leaders from around the world sat around a massive oak table, their voices echoing off the steel walls as they argued about the Stellar Alliance's request for help. "The swarm has already destroyed their best ships," General Brown slammed his fist on the table. They're asking for help against an enemy that tears through quantum shields like paper. We should send our newest fleet, the first fleet with all our latest technology. Admiral Miller stood quietly at the front of the room, watching the argument unfold. His weathered face showed no emotion as younger officers shouted their opinions. He'd seen more battles than most of them combined, though not all of those battles involved weapons. If I may speak, Miller's calm voice somehow cut through the noise, silencing the room. I believe I have a solution that none of you have considered. He walked to the main display and pressed a button. The image of an older starship appeared, the U.S. Madison, flagship of the 7th Fleet. Some officers couldn't hide their smirks at the sight of the training vessel. I propose we send the 7th Fleet, Miller stated simply. The room erupted in laughter, but it died quickly when they saw Miller wasn't joking. Captain Reed, commander of the 7th Fleet, stood up from his chair in the corner. His face showed confusion rather than offense. Admiral, Reed spoke carefully, my fleet is made up of training ships. We spend most of our time teaching cadets basic space maneuvers. How could we possibly stand against an enemy that's defeating the most advanced alien ships in the galaxy? Miller smiled. Tell me, Captain Reed, what's the average combat experience of your training officers? Reed thought for a moment. Most of my instructors have seen at least 15 years of active combat service. Some have over 25. And how many different types of ships has each of your crew members served on? An average of 6 different classes, sir. We need them to be familiar with multiple systems to teach effectively. Miller nodded, then turned to address the room. Ladies and gentlemen, the swarm adapts to patterns and technology. They learn to counter specific weapons and tactics, but the 7th Fleet. He gestured to the image of the old ship. These crews don't rely on advanced AI or quantum systems. They rely on experience, instinct, and the ability to teach others quickly. He walked around the table slowly. Our training fleet is actually our most experienced fleet. These ships might be older, but they're maintained by crews who know every bolt and circuit. They can fight without computers, adapt without AI, and most importantly, they can teach the Alliance forces how to do the same. The room fell silent as understanding dawned on their faces. General Brown leaned forward. You're not just sending them to fight the swarm. No, Miller smiled. I'm sending them to teach the Alliance how to fight like humans. The 7th Fleet isn't our weakest fleet. It's our most adaptable one. Sometimes the best way to win a war isn't with superior weapons, but with superior knowledge. Captain Reed stood straighter, a new light of understanding in his eyes. How soon do you need us to depart, Admiral? Immediately. Your fleet may be our only chance to stop the swarm. Not because you'll outgun them, but because you'll outthink them. Miller turned to the council. All in favor. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, the ships of the 7th Fleet began powering up their engines. As Captain Reed walked toward the Madison's boarding ramp, Admiral Miller stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. Remember, Michael, Miller said quietly, using Reed's first name, you're not just a captain anymore. You're a teacher. And right now, the whole galaxy needs a lesson in how humanity fights its battles. The U.S. Madison dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Stellar Alliance territory, followed by 12 other ships of the 7th Fleet. The sight that greeted them made even the most experienced crew members pause. The remains of what had once been a mighty defense station drifted silently in space, torn apart like paper. Captain Reed stood on the Madison's bridge, his face grim as he studied the wreckage. Status report, he ordered quietly. Lieutenant Ward at Tactical looked up from her screen. No life signs in the wreckage, sir. But I'm detecting unusual energy patterns. The metal itself seems to be dissolving. The swarm's bioweapons, Reed nodded. They don't just destroy ships, they eat them. He turned to his communications officer. Send word to all ships. No debris is to be brought aboard. We don't know what these weapons might do to our hulls. A new voice crackled over the comm system. Human vessels. This is Commander Baker of the Alliance Defense Force. Thank goodness you're here. We've lost 3 more systems since we sent our distress call. The main screen lit up to show Baker's face. His expression changed from relief to confusion as he saw the aged human vessels. These are your ships. 7th Fleet, at your service, Reed replied calmly. Permission to dock with your command station. Baker hesitated. Of course, but we were expecting. He struggled to find polite words. Something more impressive. Reed smiled. Commander, sometimes the best tool for the job isn't the shiniest one in the box. Where would you like us to start? The Alliance commander sent docking coordinates, and within an hour, Reed found himself walking through the Alliance command station. The halls were filled with wounded soldiers and worried faces. Every screen showed maps with red zones, spreading like a disease across Alliance space. In the main command center, Baker pointed to the latest battle data. The swarm adapts to every weapon we use. They learn to counter our tactics almost instantly. Their ships are practically organic. They evolve during battle. Reed watched the tactical displays, noting how the swarm ships moved. Interesting. They adapt to patterns, you say. He pulled out an old-fashioned paper notebook and started writing. The Alliance officers stared at him like he was using stone tablets. Captain Reed, Baker said carefully, I don't mean to be rude, but how can your training fleet possibly help us? Your ships don't even have quantum shields. Reed looked up from his notes. Tell me, Commander, what happens when you hit one of their ships with your quantum weapons? They adapt within minutes, sometimes seconds. And your eye targeting systems. They learn to predict and dodge them. Reed nodded. But what happens when you hit them with plain old metal shells? Baker blinked. Metal shells. We haven't used kinetic weapons in over a century. Exactly. Reed smiled. You can't adapt to a piece of metal moving at relativistic speeds. It doesn't have a pattern to learn, no programming to counter. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. He turned to his executive officer. Start unloading the training programs. All Alliance crews are to report for immediate instruction in manual targeting and navigation. Manual targeting. Baker looked shocked. But that's impossible without AI assistance. Impossible. Reed chuckled. Commander, every cadet in my fleet learns to do it in their first year. Your crews will learn too. The swarm adapts to patterns, but they've never faced human unpredictability. As if to emphasize his point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Swarm ships detected. Someone shouted. They're charging weapons. Reed calmly walked to the command console. Well then, Commander Baker, it looks like your first lesson starts now. Let me show you how we do things in the 7th Fleet. All ships, battle stations. Captain Reed's voice echoed through the comm system as 5 swarm vessels approached the station. Their black, organic-looking hulls seemed to pulse with an eerie light. Commander Baker watched in horror as the swarm ships launched their first attack. They're using the same bioweapons that destroyed our defense fleet. Your ships don't stand a chance without quantum shields. Reed smiled calmly. Quantum shields stop energy weapons perfectly, Commander. But sometimes the best defense isn't a shield at all. He pressed his comm button. All ships, implement Training Protocol 17. To Baker's amazement, the human ships began moving in what looked like complete chaos. Each vessel turned in a different direction, their engines firing in seemingly random patterns. What are they doing? Baker asked, confused. There's no formation. Exactly. Reed nodded. You can't predict what has no pattern. Lieutenant Ward, demonstrate our primary weapons. The U.S. Madison's sides opened to reveal rows of what looked like ancient artillery tubes. Baker's jaw dropped as simple metal shells, barely more sophisticated than cannonballs, launched into space at incredible speeds. The swarm ships, programmed to detect and counter energy weapons, didn't even try to dodge. 3 of the shells struck the lead vessel, tearing through its biomechanical hull. The ship writhed like a wounded animal. Impossible. Baker gasped. Those are just pieces of metal. Tungsten cores wrapped in steel. Actually, Reed corrected. Traveling at 30% light speed. No fancy programming for them to adapt to, no energy signature to detect. Just good old-fashioned physics. The remaining swarm ships changed tactics, spraying their bioweapons toward the human fleet. The weapons, designed to eat through energy shields and advanced alloys, splashed harmlessly against the Madison's hull. Our ships are built with materials so basic, their weapons don't recognize them as technology, Reed explained. Sometimes being primitive has its advantages. All ships implement Training Protocol 23. The human fleet split into 3 groups, executing a maneuver that looked like an old naval battle formation. More kinetic rounds fired from their tubes, catching the swarm ships in a deadly crossfire. But how are you aiming without AI assistance? Baker watched in amazement as another swarm ship exploded. Reed pointed to his weapons officer. Tell him how long you've been shooting. Son. The young officer grinned. 25 years, sir. Started with paper targets when I was 10. Every instructor in the 7th Fleet learns to shoot the old way first. Can't hack a human eye, can't predict a human mind. 2 swarm ships tried to retreat, but the human vessels had already cut off their escape route. The last volley of kinetic rounds reduced them to drifting debris. In less than 15 minutes, the battle was over. 5 swarm ships destroyed, and not a single human vessel lost. The Alliance Command Center was dead silent. Baker struggled to find words. That's not possible. Our most advanced ships couldn't even scratch them. Reed walked over to a tactical display. Your ships relied too much on technology, Commander. The swarm adapted to your programming, predicted your eyes' responses, but they can't adapt to this. He tapped his head. Human intuition, human experience, human unpredictability. He turned to face the Alliance officers. Now, who's ready for their first lesson in manual targeting? The swarm will be back, and next time they'll try to adapt to what they saw today. That's why we need to teach your crews everything we know. Baker straightened his uniform. When do we start? Right now. Reed smiled. Lesson 1. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. Your whole fleet needs to unlearn its dependence on advanced technology. We have maybe a day before the swarm returns in force. A day to learn what your crews take years to master. Baker looked worried. Don't worry, Reed chuckled. Teaching is what the 7th Fleet does best. Now, let's get to work. Again. Captain Reed called out as he watched Alliance crews practice manual targeting. In just 3 days, the massive training hall aboard the Alliance station had been transformed into something that looked like an old Earth naval academy. The Alliance officers sat at simplified weapon stations, their advanced neural interfaces and AI assists deliberately turned off. They were learning to aim using nothing but their eyes, hands, and minds. I hit it. An Alliance gunner jumped up from his station, celebrating his first successful manual target strike. Around him, other crews were slowly improving, learning to trust their own judgment over computer assistance. Lieutenant Ward walked between the training stations, offering advice. Don't think about the math, she told them. Feel the shot. Your mind can process targeting data faster than you realize. You just need to trust your instincts. Commander Baker stood beside Reed, watching the progress. It's remarkable, he admitted. Yesterday, most of them couldn't hit a target without AI help. Today, an alarm blared through the station. Multiple swarm signatures detected. The tactical officer's voice shook. At least 20 ships, approaching from 3 directions. Reed smiled. Perfect timing. Commander Baker, would you like to show the swarm what your crews have learned? Baker looked uncertain. But we've only had 3 days of training. Sometimes 3 days of the right training is better than years of the wrong training. Reed turned to address the crews. Battle stations, Alliance crews, take your positions. Remember what you've learned. No AI, no neural links. Trust yourselves. The swarm ships approached confidently, their biomechanical hulls altered to defend against the kinetic weapons they'd encountered before. But this time, they faced both human and Alliance ships working together. All ships, execute Training Pattern 5. Reed commanded. The human vessels split into their seemingly chaotic formations, but this time, Alliance ships moved with them, mimicking their unpredictable movements. The swarm's first volley of bioweapons missed completely, unable to lock onto the erratic flight patterns. The Alliance crews, fighting without their usual technology, responded with a mix of kinetic rounds and modified energy weapons fired manually. Look how they try to adapt. Reed pointed at the tactical display. But they can't predict what they don't understand. You can't program a response to human instinct. An Alliance gunner whooped as his manually aimed shot tore through a swarm vessel. It's like you said, Captain. They expect patterns, but every human shoots differently. The battle unfolded like a dance, with human and Alliance ships weaving between each other in seemingly random patterns. The swarm ships, designed to counter organized fleet movements, couldn't adapt to the controlled chaos. Push them toward the gas giant, Baker ordered, having learned to think strategically rather than rely on tactical computers. The combined fleet herded the swarm ships toward the massive planet's gravity well. Reed nodded approvingly. Now you're thinking like a human commander. Sometimes the best weapon is the environment itself. The swarm ships, caught between the planet's gravity and the attacking fleet, began to break apart. Their attempts to evolve and adapt came too late as they were torn apart by both weapons fire and gravitational forces. As the last swarm ship exploded, cheers erupted throughout the fleet. Alliance crews celebrated their first major victory against the dreaded enemy. I understand now, Baker said quietly to Reed, why Earth sent the training fleet. You're not just helping us fight. You're teaching us how to think differently. Reed watched as human instructors continued coaching Alliance crews even during the post-battle procedures. The swarm adapts to technology, Commander, but they can't adapt to the human spirit. That's something that has to be taught, not programmed. And this is just the beginning, Baker realized. How many more crews can you train? As many as you have. Reed smiled. After all, teaching is what the 7th Fleet does best. Now let's prepare for tomorrow's lesson. I have a feeling the swarm is going to be a very motivated student too. The Alliance capital world glowed like a jewel in the darkness of space. Around it, a massive fleet of ships gathered, both human and alien vessels preparing for what everyone knew would be the decisive battle of the war. Captain Reed stood on the Madison's bridge, watching as more ships arrived through hyperspace. In the 2 weeks since their first victory, the 7th Fleet had trained over 50 Alliance crews in human combat techniques. Now they would see if it was enough. Swarm ships detected. Lieutenant Ward's voice cut through the tense silence. Multiple signatures. Sir, I'm counting over 200 vessels. This is their largest attack yet. Reed nodded calmly. They're desperate. We've cost them too many ships. They want to end this now. He opened a channel to the fleet. All vessels, this is Captain Reed. Remember your training. No neural links, no AI targeting. Trust your instincts and watch out for each other. Commander Baker's voice came over the comm. My crews are ready, Captain. We'll show them what we've learned from humanity's finest teachers. The swarm ships emerged from hyperspace like a dark cloud, their biomechanical hulls bristling with new weapons. They had evolved again, growing thick armor plates to counter kinetic rounds and energy-absorbing tissues to defend against conventional weapons. Look at those adaptations, Ward observed. They've prepared for everything we used before. Reed smiled. Exactly. But that's what makes humans special. We never fight the same way twice. All ships implement Battle Plan Delta. The combined fleet split into smaller groups, each moving in different patterns. Human vessels led each formation, with Alliance ships following their seemingly random movements. The swarm's first wave of attacks missed completely, their targeting systems confused by the lack of predictable patterns. "Now," Reed ordered, "show them our surprise." The Alliance ships launched their secret weapon, old-style nuclear missiles stripped of all advanced electronics. The swarm's defenses, designed to stop energy weapons and smart projectiles, couldn't detect the primitive but deadly warheads until it was too late. Explosions lit up space as dozens of swarm ships were caught in the atomic fireballs. Their biomechanical hulls, evolved to resist modern weapons, provided no protection against the raw power of nuclear fusion. "Push through the gap," Baker commanded. The Alliance ships followed the human tactic of exploiting any weakness, no matter how small. More vessels poured through the break in the swarm's formation, breaking their lines apart. The battle became a swirling chaos of ships, exactly the kind of fight humans excelled at. Each Alliance crew, trained by the 7th Fleet, fought with human unpredictability. Every gunner fired differently. Every pilot flew their own way, creating a battlefield the swarm couldn't adapt to. "They're trying to regroup," Ward reported. "The surviving ships are gathering for another attack." Reed keyed his comm. "All ships, execute training pattern Omega. Let's show them why they call us the best teaching fleet in human space." The combined fleet moved as one, but not in the organized formations the swarm expected. Instead, each ship acted independently while supporting the others, creating a deadly web of crossfire. Kinetic rounds, nuclear weapons, and energy beams struck from every angle. The swarm ships, unable to predict or counter so many different attack styles at once, began to fall. Their attempts to evolve mid-battle only made them more vulnerable, as they struggled to adapt to too many threats simultaneously. "Their formation is breaking." Baker's voice was triumphant. "They're retreating." Reed watched as the surviving swarm ships flowed into hyperspace. The space around the capital world was filled with cheering from both human and Alliance crews. Together, they had achieved what neither could have done alone. "Well done, everyone," Reed broadcast to the fleet. "Class dismissed." As celebrations erupted across both fleets, Reed smiled at his crew. "Remember this day," he told them. "This is why we're teachers first and warriors second. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the battle, it's showing others how to win it themselves." 1 month after the great battle at the Alliance capital, the massive council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of alien races. At the center of attention stood Captain Reed and his crew from the 7th Fleet, along with Commander Baker and his Alliance officers. Head Counselor Smith addressed the gathering. "Today, we celebrate not just a victory, but a lesson learned. When the Stellar Alliance asked for help, humanity sent what many thought was their weakest fleet. Now we understand it was their wisest choice." The chamber's main screen showed recordings from the battles. Alliance ships moved with human unpredictability, their crews fighting without advanced computers. The swarm's repeated defeats played out for all to see. "The swarm has retreated beyond the galaxy's edge," Baker reported. "Our deep space sensors show them moving away at maximum speed. They've learned that some enemies cannot be defeated by simply adapting and evolving." Reed stepped forward when asked to speak. "The 7th Fleet didn't win this war," he said simply. "We just taught others how to win it. The Alliance crews proved that the best weapon isn't the most advanced one. It's the one wielded with skill and understanding." Admiral Miller, who had made the decision to send the training fleet, nodded in approval. Sometimes the greatest strength lies not in having the best technology, but in having the best teachers. The 7th Fleet has always known this. The council chamber's doors opened, and a stream of Alliance cadets marched in. They wore new uniforms that combined Alliance colors with elements of human military design. Each carried both advanced tablets and old-style paper notebooks. "These are the first graduates of our new combined training program," Baker announced proudly. "They've learned to fight both with technology and without it, to trust both computers and their own instincts. The 7th Fleet has helped us create a new generation of warriors." Lieutenant Ward stood with a group of Alliance weapons officers she had trained. The swarm adapted to patterns, she explained. But they could never adapt to human creativity. Now the Alliance forces have learned to be just as unpredictable. A young Alliance officer stepped forward. "We thought we needed humanity's most advanced ships," he said. "Instead, they sent us their most experienced teachers. The Seventh Fleet taught us that victory doesn't come from having better weapons. It comes from having better warriors." The Council voted unanimously to establish permanent training exchanges between human and Alliance forces. The Seventh Fleet would continue to teach their methods to other races, preparing them for any future threats. "But what if the swarm returns?" a Council member asked. "What if they evolve new ways to fight?" Reed smiled. "Then we'll teach new ways to fight back. That's the real lesson here. The ability to learn and adapt isn't just for our enemies. It's for us too." After the ceremony, Reed found Admiral Miller waiting near the Madison's docking bay. The old admiral looked at the ship with pride. "You know," Miller said quietly, "when I chose to send the Seventh Fleet, many thought I was making a mistake. But I remembered something my first instructor told me. The strongest warrior isn't the one with the biggest gun. It's the one who knows best how to use it." Reed nodded, watching as human and Alliance crews mingle together, sharing stories and experiences. "The best victories," he replied, "are the ones that leave both sides stronger than before." Miller smiled and looked out at the stars. "And the best teachers are the ones who understand that every student has something to teach them too."